Welcome everybody to this week's, well actually last week's IKEA debrief for the Connect strategy. As we're waiting for others to join, if you want to jump into chat and please let us all know where you are listening in from, watching from, and make sure you select all panelists and attendees for the chat so that everybody can see your contributions. So yeah, if you could do that, that'd be great. So we have a student from India, so welcome. I was just talking to Wahib, who's my support person for this call, and he says they're beginning monsoon season. So of course, I thought that was quite funny because we just call that English weather, but there we go. So anyone else want to tell us in chat from where you are tuning in? That would be great as we wait for a few others to join. Zubida, welcome from Kuwait, where I have not been. Ruchira from Mumbai, beginning monsoon season. Nicole, welcome from Germany. Melinda from New York, welcome. So quite a diverse geography. Early in the morning, later in the evening, me midday or early afternoon. Niha, welcome from Singapore. Very good. And let's see, we have a minute after the hour. Ineta, welcome from Latvia, a place I plan to visit at some point, thanks to your tourism efforts. And welcome from Barcelona, fantastic. Elise from Connecticut, outstanding. Okay, I will get underway as others join and tell us where they're tuning in from. That would be great as usual. Mute your mic, very good. Use Q&A and or chat for any questions. And if I see a bunch of questions come up, I will stop and try to address those questions. So let me move the slide deck along. This is the fourth strategy that we're going to look at of the 5 strategies for IKEA, and it's actually my most favorite. And the reason for that is it's actually a strategy that I focused on and written about in my own work from a marketing standpoint. So we'll go into that forthwith with the free marketing space that I labeled it a number of years ago. We'll look at IKEA's connecting strategy, IKEA's customer service. We'll look at the discussion thread for this week, which was your use of social media and how that might be changing, or from last week, I'm sorry. And that will be it. So today we're looking at the Connect strategy, and the essence of the Connect strategy is that more and more customers are engaging with each other around your brand. And a number of years ago, actually, so this is in the early 2000s now, I developed a framework that sort of captures this idea. And this image sort of captures that framework. And I call it the free marketing space. So what we've done, or 2 of the strategies that we've undertaken thus far in the course, is the engage strategy, and that's the sort of content marketing that you're as a brand, and in this case IKEA, is producing and putting through its access point. So the access strategy to push that content out there into what I would call the free marketing space. Free marketing as in freedom of speech, and this sort of free marketing space is getting larger and more robust the more we adopt the internet, social media, mobile adoption, and so on and so forth. Whilst I first developed this idea in the early 2000s, this was before social media was part of our lexicon. You know, it was blogs then, discussion forums, and so forth. The free marketing space has only expanded, I think, with these additional sort of social media platforms that we're so used to today. the core idea is, in the free marketing space, our customers are talking about our brands, and we don't directly control that. In the old days, we essentially controlled the dialogue for our brand through some sort of command control structure with traditional marketing, whether it's through traditional TV advertising or whatever it might be. But we had a high degree of control over all that. Now customers are seeking responses from other customers, looking at reviews, checking out forums and various other things about our brands, and contributing to those forums and those social media platforms or whatever it might be. So that's the idea behind this notion of free marketing. So free marketing space, and if you're interested, I have a link to a paper that I wrote, and again, I think I revised it in 2006, that discusses this idea. And I use the educational marketplace as a case study because that was the industry in which I worked. I'm happy to share this URL directly with you if you want. I post it into the chat at the end of this webinar. It is increasing, as I stated earlier. It began with the internet. So in the old days, if anybody remembers, anyone's as old as me, we had things called Usenet news groups, and that's where customers would talk to each other about various topics, and sometimes conversation would appear there. Then the internet becomes more robust, and then you've got social media, lots of conversations going on in social media, more and more so, sometimes on brands' own social platforms, and IKEA has a number of those. We'll talk about that in a minute, and on individual customers' own social networks, right? So if I have an IKEA experience, I go to IKEA and I assemble the products and I'm frustrated or whatever, I might post something on my own social media platform, hitting my own networks, or I might post it on the IKEA UK social media platforms. But IKEA needs to be smart enough to figure all that out. And then with mobile, we have greater access to the internet. It's easier for us to contribute to these conversations and to follow these conversations and so forth that are happening in, again, what I call the free marketing space. Free as in freedom of speech. I can say what I want about IKEA, and what I want to say about IKEA is going to be dependent on my experience with IKEA, right? And free as in it's free. So there's no direct cost associated as there is with traditional marketing. Customers, in essence, in this sort of free marketing space, act as nodes. They amplify word of mouth potentially. They might share their friend's story about their trip to IKEA, or they might share a piece of IKEA content if they follow or are a fan of one of IKEA's pages. So that would be amplifying that word of mouth. Customers are now connected with each other, their own networks, potentially connected with the brand if they subscribe or a fan of a brand's social media pages, and therefore then connected with other customers connected to that brand. But customers are independent, right? So they're connected, yet they remain independent. And again, that sort of idea of freedom of speech in terms of what we want to say about the brand is going to be directly based on our experience. So we'll look at a lot of that a little bit later. It's important for brands to recognize that not only do they have to observe content on their own social media platforms, so IKEA knows which ones they are, but also independent accounts, so their customers' own accounts, and obviously platforms outside of the traditional social media platforms. So common examples for IKEA would be things like Reddit. And a number of you identified Reddit as a place where people do discuss the IKEA brand. For brands, this free marketing space, we have less control. So it's a little bit unnerving, especially as this free marketing space emerged over the last 10 years, 15 years. Obviously, brands and marketers are becoming smarter about it. But we do have less control. It means we need to be much more authentic about our brand and our brand voice and our brand promise. We have to promise what we can deliver. We have to be more transparent as we get queried. and so on and so forth. We need to listen and engage, and this is something that Professor Rogers focused on in that sort of listen and learn video. In fact, I think there were 2 videos that discussed listen and learn. And IKEA does do a little bit of this, although, and have identified some interesting observations from their listen and learn, but then there are other aspects of what IKEA doesn't do that seems to fall down a little short on that regard, in that regard. But you need to listen before you engage. You don't want to be out there in the free marketing space just, you know, saying lots of lovely positive things about your brand without first listening. What are our customers saying about our brand? And then how do we respond? That's going to be far more important. And I would argue your content marketing, so that engage strategy that we've discussed in the last couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago now, that's there to help influence the dialogue in the free marketing space, right? So your engage strategy gets pumped out through your various social media channels, helps build community in the free marketing space, and the more engaging your content is, the more likely it might get shared and out there in the free marketing space to help influence the overall conversation and dialogue that is ongoing about your brand. So a little bit of focus on IKEA now. So that's sort of the overarching understanding of sort of Connect strategy, really understanding what is going on in that free marketing space and so forth. So for IKEA, and again, now we're going back to, you know, the access strategy, and that's what you were asked at the beginning of your homeworks last week, is sort of identifying platforms and engaging content that gets excitement, as it were, from IKEA. The idea then again is, does that content potentially then go viral? Therefore it gets shared into that free marketing environment and helps influence further conversation about the IKEA brand. So a couple of you anyway, a few of you in your homeworks identified, there was an article written on the number of social media platforms IKEA runs, and it's upwards of now 170 across countries, across different social media. So Facebook, Twitter, sometimes in Twitter they'd have a couple of simultaneous accounts, one for customer service and one for branding. So, and these numbers are just for the UK. So you've got UK, US, and a number of other options. Excuse me, someone's moving a boiler. I'm hoping they don't create too much noise. So here's just an example of the numbers that are connected to some of the IKEA platforms in the UK. So you've got 27 million on Facebook, 38,000 Twitter, 500,000 Instagram. So this is a reasonably sized community that's attached to IKEA and potentially can serve as nodes to get that content further out in the free marketing space. And that's what they want to try to do, is influence the branding of IKEA. So you guys came up with some great examples of content that's exciting and potentially shareable and creating buzz for IKEA. So Sleep Like a Princess, that was a good one. The number of you highlighted UK store Sleepover, Exeter store, I think it was. That was very interesting. Bedroom Makeover, Australian Wedding. These were all examples of what I would say, good examples of IKEA using what we call gamification. That's something else that Professor Rogers talked about in terms of creating contests and buzz and action around certain themes. And the idea is, you know, people participate, and when they participate, they're also participating on their own social media channels and getting buzz out that way and creating additional excitement. So that's all very good. Some of you used examples of just regular content that they produce. that you found engaging and exciting and so forth. So the home tour video series that we've focused on a couple of times, you gave that as an example. The plush shark popped up a couple of times. That was very interesting. So it's a particular product of IKEA that apparently people like to be photographed with and photographed with on Instagram and places like that. They are therefore marketing IKEA by doing that, right? So that's a great example of the Connect strategy, that plush shark thing. I think Pride bags, so celebrating Pride Month with the IKEA bag, with the rainbow colors and so on and so forth. Very good. World Ocean Day, one of you identified as an example. The book, we've done that video. So there's quite a few good examples. Let me see. Kama Sutra, which was a bit of a slapstick campaign based off of obviously the very old book or whatever of our, I guess, our sleeping habits or whatever, bedroom habits. IKEA Flicks was another example, which is actually really quite an amusing example that you identified, because IKEA Flicks was announced on April 1st. So some of you might have got the idea at that point, therefore it must have been an April Fool's potential campaign, right? So here's some examples of these. Let me try to pull that up. Sorry. So the UK Sleepover, I think, is another really good example actually of the Connect strategy. So this is an independent Facebook group. So started by IKEA fans, I guess, called I Want to Have a Sleepover in IKEA. So they'd all be discussing in this group, independent of IKEA, about their ambition to have a sleepover in IKEA. And I have no idea why anyone would really want to do that, but that's obviously, if you're a passionate fan, that's quite good. It had 100,000 members. That's very good. So IKEA, through its listening strategy, obviously I identified this group and started monitoring and figuring it out, and then came up with a contest that allowed 100 people to come and sleep over in IKEA. So you imagine those 100 people are also going to celebrate their success of going on this journey with IKEA on their own social media channels and so on and so forth. So hitting their network. So that's all part of that Connect strategy. So they could select their own mattress and bedding. It's obviously a big sales piece for IKEA. IKEA provided sleep experts to provide insights and various other things, so that you understood that these IKEA beds are fantastic to sleep on. There was a social media, traditional media campaign, and there were 330 editorial pieces written about this particular campaign. So again, that then further influences that free marketing space with that additional content being pushed out there that's not directly coming from IKEA. IKEA launched the Happy to Bed campaign alongside this particular campaign. This was then duplicated in other locations and so forth. So that was a good example of gamification and various other sort of generating buzz to get content out there, to get people talking about IKEA and positioning IKEA as a great place to get stuff for your sleeping, right? So that's very good. Another example was the IKEA Australia wedding. Again, I'm not quite sure why anyone would be so passionate about IKEA. They want to get married in an IKEA store, but obviously that did happen, and that created a lot of buzz and so forth in Australia. Here's an example of the shark, which is very good. So this is an IKEA product that people found so endearing that they want to be photographed with it and stick it on Instagram and so on and so forth. So that gets that content out there. That's fantastic. The Kama Sutra campaign, again, a bit slap, irreverent and so on and so forth, but it was about how to design your bedroom based on certain styles that you're looking for, and create some buzz, and therefore people talk about the campaign, and that's what IKEA wants. And one of you, this was very interesting, one of you came up with this particular piece of content as an example of IKEA really getting it, right? So love the way you use IKEA products in your home. inspire our share space community with your ideas. You may be chosen as our pick of the week. Can anyone in chat tell us what is wrong with this particular selection? I mean, it's great selection, so this is nothing against the person that selected it. I think fantastic. But in currently, it's a bit of a step back for IKEA, because they actually, what do? They killed the share space platform. So this was IKEA's first attempt, I think, of actually putting some community directly on its website. And after a few months, or maybe a year or two, I can't exactly remember, they killed this share space platform literally 2 or 3 months ago. It's one of my criticisms of IKEA. They really don't get the community aspect, I think, at this point. We'll get a bit more into that a little bit later. So the IKEA Flix is the April Fool's. Yes, sorry, but great idea in 2013. Yeah, it was a great idea, and we'll talk a little bit more about the idea at the time when we talk about the IKEA hackers situation. But it was absolutely a great idea. It's just a shame that it has been nixed at this point. So the IKEA Flix, this is very good. It's actually quite interesting. It was an April Fool's joke, you know, Netflix, IKEA Flix, whatever, watched a lot of TV about IKEA. Then a couple of posts were like, well, wouldn't it be good if they actually did have IKEA Flix, and it was all about assembling how to assemble furniture and so forth. Then someone else followed up with the same commentary, and then IKEA said, well, actually, we do that. But the point is, if people aren't seeing it as widely, then it's up to IKEA to make that content more easily accessible and readily available, perhaps. So anyway, that was the IKEA Flix. So what I would say about IKEA, and hopefully I've been a big cheerleader for IKEA up to this point, is they are good at creating engaging content and pushing it through their social media channels. I think we've come time and time again of good illustrations of this over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks. This goes back to their access and engage strategies. They're good at that. They do a lot of research. They've got good content, good access points, and so forth. I would argue they're less good at managing outside forums, i.e. those channels that are outside of their direct control. So you can think of Reddit as a classic example. We'll look at a couple more examples a little bit later. And they are less good at managing social customer service, and maybe customer service in general. And that's problematic, again, in that free marketing space, because that's where all these conversations are occurring, and therefore they're readily accessible for new customers coming in and learning, right? Again, Professor Rogers uses the term social customer service. So I would argue that they are potentially less good at that. So examples of forums in the free marketing space. So again, remember that outside band. Conversations are ongoing with IKEA in lots of different environments. So that's absolutely fantastic for IKEA. It's such a big brand. People are going to talk about it, right? So you've got IKEAhackers.net. So we'll look at that in a minute, but it's a site where lots of people share ideas and modifications and so on and so forth. And therefore, in turn, these are IKEA fans talking about stuff. So that's a very good thing. Okay, let's have a look. IKEAfans.com, that's closed down. That had a good kitchen planning forum. So it's a shame that that has closed down. And I believe IKEA was involved in trying to shut IKEAfans.com down. There was a time actually when it tried to shut down, excuse me, IKEAhackers.net. We'll talk about that in a little bit. IKEApedia is out there. It's a website, but it's now relatively inactive. Reddit has at least 2 IKEA channels, or whatever, forums, I should say. One is a general IKEA Reddit forum, very good. One's all about delivery. So if you've got a forum that's focused solely on the delivery of your product, you might understand that that's an anxiety point that your customers have. And then there's a forum also on Reddit for IKEA hacks. So there's lots of IKEA hacker type forums out there that IKEA, even if they don't engage directly, needs to be aware of and listen first before deciding whether to engage. And then IKEA's Share Space platform, which began, I guess, 2013, was a very good idea, but unfortunately, for whatever reasons, has recently been shut down. And the Share Space platform sort of began, I believe, after IKEA took a long, hard look at what was going on at IKEAhackers.net and IKEAfans.com and so forth, and decided, how can we bring some of that engagement directly on our own site? And I think that was the challenge that they faced at the time, and they had some success with it, but then obviously it didn't. They decided not to continue with it. Okay, so here's a screen grab from regarding IKEAhackers.net, which is a very popular IKEA fan site. If you're like me, and I'm just going to read a little bit of this to you. If you're like me, you've spent countless hours surfing IKEA Hackers, where IKEA fans send in their mods, modifications, and hacks. You've also probably spent money at IKEA thanks to the site, which has inspired DIY further among its fans, which is why IKEA shutting down IKEA Hackers this weekend over trademark claims is beyond boneheaded. IKEA Hackers began 8 years ago when a Kuala Lumpur-based IKEA fan who goes by the pseudonym Jules Yap began posting interesting examples of IKEA customers who assembled their furniture in new ways, hacks of existing products that turn them into new and exciting pieces. Since then, the site has blossomed into a booming community of fans, growing to the point that Yap began to sell small ads to support what had become a huge job maintaining the site. That's where the trouble began. IKEA recently sent Yap a cease and desist letter over her use of the trademarked IKEA name. As a result, Yap is giving up her 8-year website. Ultimately, she didn't, and she and, or I presume she and IKEA resolved the situation, and IKEA hackers.net is still ongoing. But it is a really interesting case of IKEA, I think, misreading and misunderstanding the sort of free marketing space and the value it can provide, even with these independent forums, and what should be the best approach for IKEA. Sort of partnering with Jules Yap versus having an antagonistic relationship with Jules Yap. And I think IKEA has basically gone down both paths and learned from this particular case. So someone asked, when did this happen? This happened, I think 2013, or just previous to that. It happened before they started the Share Space platform themselves to try to mimic some of what Jules Yap was doing at IKEA Hackers. So anyway, sorry, I should know the specific dates. I know the IKEAhackers.net instance did sort of stimulate the Share Space platform for IKEA. So IKEA hackers.net is all about modding, repurposing, customizing IKEA products. We have 5,000 and counting hacks all over the globe. You're bound to find something. So this is a great example of a platform, an independent forum in the free marketing space that IKEA benefits from, I think, right? I mean, it has to be a benefit if their brand is being discussed in such a favorable manner. And this is just an example of a post. Any ideas how I could replicate this using IKEA? Wouldn't it be fantastic? So that's got to be good for IKEA for this type of content to be out there. This is actually from Reddit, the IKEA hacks forum on Reddit. So many of you, I assume, are familiar with Reddit or to some extent, right? So a quick poll question. I'm going to put this out there. So we're switching gears now. I talked a bit about the free marketing space. I want to talk directly now about what you think of IKEA's customer service, social customer service. So this was a direct question for you in your homework assignments. So this is the customer service that IKEA manages through its social media platform. So if you could answer this question, I have about 40% of you have answered, so kick on a little bit. Just to press one of those buttons, 1 to 5, 5 being outstanding, 1 being pretty lousy. I shouldn't use the word damn, pretty lousy, and so on and so forth. Okay, we're getting more and more answers, so I will, for the sakes of time, end the polling and share the results. So these results that I'm sharing are quite typical of this particular question. Quite a varied response. A couple of you rated them very poor, twice as many of you then rated them outstanding, most of you in the middle, which I think is quite generous actually for some of the examples that you shared regarding their customer service. So I will stop sharing those results now so I can get that out of the way. So rate IKEA's customer service 1, grade 4 to 5. They're not outstanding across the board, that's for sure. How does their customer service impact their brand in the free marketing space? It's really important, I think. You know, when people are doing quick surveys on products to buy, brands to buy, whatever it might be, and they're seeing some negative content without too much digging, that can't be a very good thing for any brand, let alone a brand that seems to be such a positive brand as IKEA. And then you have to ask yourself, well, why do customers use social media for customer service? And I think in the case of IKEA, they've gotten so frustrated with the traditional customer service channels like phone and email and so forth, that they end up on social media sort of at their most frustrated point, which is unfortunate for IKEA because that's when it's most visible to others, right? So if they actually had a good customer service experience over the phone, then that would reduce the level of content that ends up spilling into social media. And these opinions aren't universal, right? So Euler says, but they answer every question in social media. I don't understand why it is so terrible. I think the problem with IKEA is inconsistent. So in some parts of the world, they do a very good job with social customer service. In other parts of the world, they do a poor job in social customer service. So Euler, you could definitely be experiencing the more positive aspects from IKEA. So I'm not saying it's universally bad, and I'm certainly not saying it's universally good. And we're going to show some examples of the latter here in a minute from many of your homework assignments. So in terms of their strategy, they do have a listening hub. So again, that listen and learn strategy that Professor Rogers talked about, IKEA wants to be socially intelligent, right? So they try to use their listening hub to identify issues quickly. So they identified some sort of assembly issues that could be eased by a more easier approach to assembly. So they came up with a wedge dowel tool in order to do that. So that was an example of their social customer service working well. Identify opportunities is another example of their listening, social listening strategy. And that was the example with the sleepover in IKEA that we talked about a little bit earlier. They also identified through their listening hub the customer complaints in the US, more so on social media, in the UK, more so on independent forums. Again, both in that free marketing space. One of you, I hate saying Jay Sveshchik because I pronounce it all wrong, and I can't say your first name, and I know I should know your first name from your homeworks because I know it's revealed there, but I've forgotten. But it's stating that maybe it's cultural issues in different countries, but I would argue it's not, because oftentimes, like in the UK, the US, and whatever, the social customer service isn't that great all around. So that becomes a bit of a problem. Okay, so their standard approach is to take the customer service issues to private, but then the problem with that is we as customers never see if the actual issue is resolved. The performance is inconsistent across different sort of countries, different platforms, and so on and so forth. And it's very important that even if you're using partners for delivery and so on and so forth, that if they're not performing up to task, that impacts your brand because they're buying your product. So it becomes very important regardless, right? 3 levels of customer service, or I would say 3 types of customer service issues that a brand like IKEA has to face. So answering general product inquiries, IKEA is actually pretty good at that. It knows its product. So if you ask about a particular product, a particular brand, and so on and so forth, they can answer those questions pretty readily, how much it costs, etc. When they're dealing with failed purchase situations, that's where they start falling down. So it's assembly issues, things didn't arrive on time, the delivery people didn't show up when they should have showed up, and so on and so forth. That's problematic. And then in issues of crises, and you know, all companies have to recognize now that when a crisis occurs, in that free marketing space, your customers are talking about this stuff much more readily than they would have done in years past. So how do you handle a crisis situation? You've got to be much more on top of it, much more in front of the conversation, not let it percolate and fester, and deal with it much more directly and transparently and forthrightly, right? So that's very important. So, okay, there's a little bit of example of their listening hub, and it's sort of, this was one of the insights that they were able to develop from their listening hub. Filtering conversations by volume across all sites also highlights to IKEA that Americans were more likely to turn to Facebook than Brits to complain about IKEA. In the US, customer service complaints on Facebook made up 36.5% of the total conversations during studies period in 2014, compared with just 5% in the UK over the same time period. In contrast, UK consumers were far more likely to go to forums to discuss customer complaints and so on and so forth. So that's an example of an insight learnt from their listen and learn strategy. And then you would assume that they would create resources that sort of manage that, those issues. So here's some examples, and I'll go through these very quickly in one at a time, but these are all from your homework assignments, examples of content and customer service issues that you identified. So last night, only to realize you forgot the center beam, so a bit of a product is missing. For 3 hours, I've been calling and I met with, I'm sorry, we're experiencing a lot of calls, and then it hangs up on me. I've spoken to customer service twice and they've been trying to get you only to get the same message and so on and so forth. So this is a customer complaint posted on a really nice picture that IKEA put together on Instagram, right? And this is a common occurrence for IKEA. Actually, this was an example that whoever's homework it came from actually felt that IKEA dealt with this very well. So access denied, you don't have permission. So they say, thank you for sending us the details, Elise. We've reported the issues to our web team. To review, we recommend you clearing your cache and cookies. So IKEA gets a lot of questions kind of like this and knows how to answer this particular question, so answers it quite capably, I think. The rest of these examples are pretty poor on the light of IKEA. I'll read a few of them quickly, but then I'll just filter through some of the others, but these are all from your homework. So Sheriff, my experience with online shopping at IKEA is really frustrating. I made a purchase more than 1,800 pounds on whenever, and the order's supposed to be delivered whenever, but unfortunately it was delivered a day late. And the most stunning, we're not sure what the most stunning thing is, it got cut off. Evening, sorry, thank you for letting us know. If there's anything we can now do, let us know. And the guy says, no, I just want to let people know. I want to share my experience because I am frustrated. So that's a problem when the frustration gets to to the social media, thinking about putting money aside. So this is IKEA doing something positive to support these artists. They can only buy a chair. And here I am talking to myself. So this person's getting frustrated because she's having a conversation with herself because no one from IKEA is engaging with her. So that was kind of interesting. Okay, again, another customer complaint. This isn't what we want to hear her at. If we can help with anything, please send us a private message. I want to send things private. IKEA, all your company did was take £100 off the bill. The guys did not show up as planned. The plaster guy oversprayed my kitchen. I had to repaint the whole thing. Then he had the nerve to dump his waste in my flowers. So that's the problem nowadays. You know, brands and companies can't afford this kind of customer support, right? So there we go. This is really interesting from one of our from one of you guys. Serbian customer service is shameful representative of your brand, such as yours, completely useless and unethical. Then I've tried to contact Swedish customer service, emphasizing that I need somebody's help. Nevertheless, they insisted on me contacting Serbian, even though I have clearly explained that they don't want to solve the issue. It's completely unacceptable. And then there's a response in a language I don't really understand. And then there's a response from someone else. I got to this new country 25 days ago and trusted IKEA with my furniture. IKEA made a mistake while placing my $4,000 order with the bed coffee and decided to ship everything to the wrong state. So another problem being shared out in the public, out in that free marketing space where anybody can see. And here's another set of problems from another. This is from IKEA Israel. Actually, two of you identified this particular conversation out there in their social customer service. This was really interesting. Someone's complaining in, I'm assuming Spanish, but it could be something else, and IKEA responding in English. So that clearly is missing the mark, I think, in that case. One of the worst service I ever experienced, 3 killer problems, time, delayed order, damaged items, and then IKEA says, sorry, we're disappointed with that. So more problems. Again, this is all identified through your homework. Here again, a couple of problems. Trying to take it to direct message, Hedge, Patricia, we caught your DM first and we'll continue to work with you there. And then someone else, no, then Patricia follows up again. The most ridiculous interaction ever. A friend says Wayfair. So now they're bringing another brand into the conversation that does everything for free. So here's another from you guys. IKEA I've called twice. First time you didn't answer, but you sent me straight to survey, blah, blah, blah. So a long message of a lot of problems. And then if you note at the bottom, it says from another customer or potential customer, good information. I won't bother ordering from them. That's what you need to avoid as a brand, clearly, is having this content out there for other potential customers to see. So IKEA, again, lots of great content, Pride Month, supporting Pride Month, very good. Only for someone to hijack that piece of content because they're frustrated with customer service. So as this person says directly, taking advantage of every IKEA forum to review the worst experience I've ever had. So bad, my emotional intelligence completely left me. And then she goes on about some bad stuff. And another of you identified her ranting on another forum that it's the same person saying exactly the same thing. This time she got a response. And then she says, I've done what you asked. Again, I still haven't received my whatever it is, whatever. It's been over 3 weeks. So that's a very frustrated person. A couple of you also identified this Vita Matos as someone who was clearly frustrated by his experience with IKEA. Hey, IKEA, after confirming delivery slot. So you get it. There's lots of issues here that you identified. Here's a potential, actually, from a couple of you identified this. This is a potential crisis for IKEA with its meatballs being identified as potentially having horse meat in them, which is a big problem and something close to my heart as I was working on the horse slaughter issue myself in the US. So IKEA's response to wholesome and healthy IKEA US meatballs, 100% USDA approved and only pork and beef products. Read more here. And it's like, I don't know if I would just tell someone to read more here if they're ranting about, about that. I think I would try to educate them a bit more directly. I was excited about the opening of a store, but I didn't want the loud music. So the response is, please go off to the right place in IKEA and complain there. So I don't think that was very good. And a couple of you cited similar examples like that. IKEA, very nice family store, available all items. And then someone now says, well, actually, they don't have really common items from our culture. This is IKEA India. So how much research have they been able to do to address what our cultural needs would be? This was a very positive example. And again, I think this goes back to IKEA when it sees a good PR opportunity, is very good at taking advantage of it. So this person, who is a real passionate IKEA customer, wanted to get a specific dressing gown, and went to the store and had to run around and couldn't find it. So she wrote this really long letter to IKEA that's kind of funny and various other things. And actually IKEA responded in a very positive fashion in this case, with the dressing gown, with some chocolates for her kid, I forget it, for her daughter, and so on and so forth. So in this instance, you say IKEA actually did a very smart thing and got press and PR for doing it. So that was very good. Okay, second poll question. Given all the complaints that I reviewed for IKEA, is it appropriate for a brand like IKEA to delete negative comments, or should they leave them open in this sort of free marketing space for everybody to see? So if you could quickly answer this survey, that would be absolutely terrific. We've got a few responses coming in, a few more, and I will leave it at that, share the results. So the majority is in certain circumstances, or no. Thankfully, nobody selected yes, they are your pages, because I think if you're doing that, you're just burying your head in the sand and avoiding what are issues that you need to address. In certain circumstances, yes, if the comments are abusive, personally abusive, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like rules for freedom of speech, right? But you definitely, as a brand, you want to deal with those issues. So as much as IKEA has that sort of listening hub strategy, I think its core customer service is not as up to speed as it needs to be. And it's a tricky problem for IKEA, because IKEA is expecting you as a customer. I mean, oftentimes you're dealing with delivery and you're dealing with assembly. All these aspects of the purchase are prone to hiccups. And if only 1% of your customers has a bad experience, given how large the IKEA brand is, that 1% is a lot of bad experience, right? In absolute numbers. And if some of that then spills out into social media, that can create some branding havoc, as it were. So here's some examples of content in other independent forums that IKEA needs to keep on top of. So this is IKEA's Reddit channel. So has an IKEA delivery issue clouded your day of the week? If it has, don't post it here. They've got a whole channel for that called IKEA Delivery. So on this particular channel, help fixing, replacing, top part of Vimy. So these are customers asking each other about problems and issues. IKEA box spring slips out of bed frame, causing the entire bed to fall in. Well, that's probably not good for IKEA to have out there being discussed in the free marketing space. So this is the IKEA Delivery channel. So good delivery experience in Dallas, Texas area today. So sometimes even good experiences get posted. So that's good experience when buying IKEA online. House damages after IKEA delivery tip, IKEA delivery nightmare in Frankfurt, missing several pieces from delivery. This isn't particularly good. IKEA needs to be on top of this. This is the Consumer Affairs site, and bad reviews across the board on the Consumer Affairs site. It's not very good. You can Google it and see these all for yourself. This is really interesting. A couple of you identified this. This is a LinkedIn story. Dear IKEA, your customer service is terrible. And this was posted quite a while ago by some big influencer. But if you look at this comment at the bottom, it's really instructive. It says, Bernard, I came upon your post when I was Googling the customer service hotline number for IKEA. I just wanted the hotline number and I came across your post. It has been many years since your post, and I wanted to let you know, IKEA, you and IKEA know the horrible customer service, the string of broken promises. I'll call back in an hour. Yeah, right. Zero evidence of service recovery, and still there. So as you will see from the Facebook page, Singapore Poor Services Global. So the point is, this particular piece of content written a number of years ago is readily accessible through Google. That's not a good thing for IKEA. This is a Yelp page, so 3 stars. Some people get frustrated with the design of their stores. And this was from one of your assignments, Pantip, which I hadn't heard of before, but is apparently a very popular forum platform, I guess kind of Reddit sort of style, in Thailand, all discussing IKEA problems. So not very good. So IKEA's customer service is inconsistent, I think it's fair to say. In the delivery aspects of their product, they have less control. Assembly, they try to improve that with their how-to videos. Now they've come out with a wedge dowel tool. So if you go to Google, you see biggest customer complaints for IKEA, it's on the assembly and so forth. So the wedge dowel tool is supposed to help with that. Customer service complaints on social media, a lot of them are about their customer service. So it's kind of like a weird thing, right? Sort of like an echo chamber of customer service, complaining about customer service, which is an opportunity potentially for Amazon as it moves further into the furniture marketplace, and for other brands like Wayfair and so on and so forth. So that's, I'll leave it at that for IKEA specifically, but I think the important thing and that I try to talk about is this whole idea of the free marketing space and its importance, and as a brand to have a good listening strategy, to know the forums where your brand is being discussed, and to be listening, engaging, potentially having your own forum on your own sites, which is something that I tried to initiate when I worked at the Wharton School. We put a forum up there for candidates to chat directly on our site. It was absolutely fantastic. It helps to identify problems real quick. And IKEA has tried that a little bit with its share space, but obviously pulled back on that more recently, which is, again, symptomatic, I think, of IKEA's sort of, is very good at its access strategy, very good at its engage strategy, but I think in its connect strategy, it's still developing. As it were, and it's a bit inconsistent across the world. For you guys, your social media behavior, a lot of you are suggesting that you're pulling back a little bit off of Facebook, more so on Instagram, more on WhatsApp, where you prefer WhatsApp now to communicate directly with your friends and family. Facebook is more got acquaintances on it. You like Facebook because you can check when people's birthdays are, so that's still in favor of Facebook. The advantage for Facebook is that it does own Instagram and WhatsApp, so if it's going to lose a little bit of ground, I suppose it doesn't mind losing a bit to those 2 platforms. Twitter, you guys use for breaking news, YouTube, and so forth. LinkedIn, I think a number of us are using LinkedIn more as a platform. And actually, the interesting thing about LinkedIn is it's actually been around longer than these other social platforms. It predates Facebook. But I would say in the last 2 or 3 years, it's really starting to come into its own with its focus on professional development and so forth. Line, Thailand, WeChat, a couple of you talked about WeChat out of China and so forth. So slight shiftings behavior. The interesting thing, and shifting use on the different platforms. So more visual content, more passive users just watching. There's lots more brands now involved on these platforms and so forth. So a little bit less sharing from individuals. But, in terms of overall significance, we're on our social media platforms now more than we're on TV and various other things. So that's important for us to note. And then as more and more of us say we're stepping back from Facebook, the data actually shows us that Facebook continues to grow, even though its growth rates are starting to drop. It's still a phenomenally well adopted platform around the world. So kudos, I guess, to Facebook. Okay, so that's it. If you could let me post this survey link into the chat, if I can find it real quick. I don't know why what I'm doing. Why don't I know what I'm doing? There we go. So let me grab that, post that into our chat. If you could answer the survey, 3 very short questions, that would be absolutely terrific. I posted a link into the chat. What I will now do is answer any of the questions I missed in chat, respond in chat. If you do have any additional questions, if you could post them now in chat, that would be absolutely fantastic. Your homework, again, very good. Lots of examples in your homework this time, especially on the customer service side, which I was able to use. So I do truly appreciate that. I also appreciate you coming to this session on a Monday rather than the previous Friday, given my travel over the last 2 or 3 days. So that was very, very good of you. Not that you have much choice if you're going to attend as I shift it. The next and the final strategy, the Collaborate strategy, will be this Friday. So we've got 2 of these debriefs this week, this calendar week. So we're back onto the Friday. So I appreciate your flexibility in that regard. So again, great homeworks. Thank you very much for all of that. And like I say, I will now sit on chat and answer any questions, concerns that you have. We're sort of 2/3 of the way, a little bit further than that, I guess, through the course. So hopefully you're keeping up, you're able to keep up and so on and so forth. I know it gets a bit intense with everything else that you're doing. But if you have any questions or concerns, ping them to me in chat or over Canvas or whatever it might be. I'm here hopefully to help you. And I'm hoping you're able to get through the Collaborate strategy, which is somewhat related to the Connect strategy. It's slightly different in terms of collaborating, in terms of developing products and so on and so forth. And we will have the debrief for that Collaborate strategy on Friday. Your assignments due sort of middle of this week, next couple of days. So all right, so I'm going to go on chat. So Priya, sorry, bring us up here. Submitted my assignment Friday night. Sorry it was late. Was there anything lacking in the answers? There wouldn't have been anything lacking in the answers. I actually read it this morning, so thank you for posting that. It was actually quite detailed, if I remember correctly, and there are still some more grades to be released. So be assured that yours will be one of those. So that was Priya. So thank you for that. Any other questions? So Inetta, in my country, IKEA is only from last summer, and I have not heard any problems with customer service. I think it could be also connected with different every nation's mentality, and that could be true culturally. Inetta, will people complain, and will they complain publicly? Maybe in the UK and US we're more apt to do that. Maybe once we get really frustrated. And I think that's the problem with social customer service. Typically, when it gets to that point that you're complaining on social media, you're a frustrated person because you've tried the phone, you've tried other avenues, and you've reached roadblocks. So you get to really vent your frustration then at that point. What I meant, there are cultures where spectators are higher than others, and therefore when you compare, you could be receiving the same level of customer service, but the rates different Italian. And that could be, you could exactly be right on that point. Okay, so I'm down at the bottom now. In the grade section, there seems to be only 8 assignments for the course. There should be 9. There are 5 strategy assignments for IKEA. 2, the social assignment, the search assignment or simulation, so that's 7. There's an assignment right at the beginning of the course. So I forget what we called that. And then there's assignment right at the end that talks about sort of analytics and metrics and so forth. So those are the 9, and you need to complete 7 out of 9 to get your certificate by the last day of the class. So that's it. So hopefully I answered that for you, David. Any other questions, please post them into the chat. If not, please, if you could answer the survey. I posted it again into chat. That would be absolutely fantastic. 3 very short questions helps us further develop these debriefs. If you don't have any questions or whatever, thank you again very much for being here, and I hope you're able to make it on Friday for our final debrief. And I always enjoy these debriefs, so I hope you enjoyed them also. And again, thank you very much for attending, everybody. Okay, so it's the analytics one that isn't showing on the grade section. I'm sure it will appear. It should appear, David. Yeah, and ping me over Canvas if you're still not seeing it in the next week or so. Hopefully, it all gets sorted. Okay, so everybody have a great week. Your collaborator assignments due by Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. If you get it in by Thursday, it will be. I will have been able to review it before our session on Friday. Have a great week, and I really look forward to seeing you hopefully again on Friday.